You're not lazy, you're just building on a ridiculously broken system. Here are a couple things that most gym owners don't truly understand in regards to overall business growth. Number one is that they believe that they have a lack of actual lead flow. Or you've heard it before, I have a lack of good leads, this is why my business isn't growing. When in all actuality, it's a lack of a process or a lack of a system that can help them acquire the leads that they're looking for. This can be attacked in a couple of different ways. Way number one that you can attack this is you place good content that attracts the type of individuals that you want to see or that you want to see come into your business. The easiest way to think about this is I always think about it like, if I was to go out and find my best client, where would my best client be? What would they buy? What would they actually be doing in order for us to be able to attract them? If you can figure that out and you can get a better understanding of your client, then you can figure out what points that you should be talking to as you make your content. The next piece is that you need to be omnipresent. What I mean by that is that it's super important that you aren't just searching from one channel to another. So with those fishing poles, the one thing that we think about as a constant is it's important that we have multiple ways to acquire the customer. The reason for this is because if you only have one way to acquire the customer, if that way goes down, then so does your business. It is super important that you have a couple of simple ways to be able to get clients. Number one is that you want to attract them by having a reactivation email campaign. So this is contacting leads that you've already had or contacting people that have already come into your door that you want to be able to get back into you. Number two is that you want to have some sort of outward marketing system. And so typically speaking, you can create some sort of affiliate relationship with, again, clientele or the stores that your clients typically frequent. Number three is that we want to have a way to be able to market via Google or on a small base, because at the end of the day, the most warm clients that you're going to have are going to be on Google traffic, because those are people that are actually and instinctually looking for your service. And then number four, of course, would be paid traffic. Now, there are also other pieces in there too, is that we can even add like a 5 to this, where you're talking about like a referral play or something where we can constantly get into the loop of getting in normal clients. So it's not the lead flow, it's the lack of action or lack of processes in place in order to get the leads. All right. The next is that most people don't have a clear and concise sales process. And the reason how I know that is that the first time that a person steps to us and we ask them, hey, Mr. Jones, what is your, or Billy Gym Owner, what is your typical closing rate? Billy tells me, you know what, Dave, I close 80%. Gotcha. 80% of warm traffic, which are people who already know, like, and trust you, or 80% of cold traffic. Well, Dave, of course it's warm, and I don't have any other way to get leads, so it's mostly off the individuals who I have that are coming in that are knowing me. Now, and this is perfectly fine, but when you want to get and you want to grow your business, you have to have a clear and concise sales process that can cut through these things, because it isn't so much even about the gym owner that's currently going through the sales. It's more so in regards like, can he teach that? Can he replicate that? And then can this actually be a process that it gets taught to for the majority of his business? Now, the way this looks is that we'll start off with just the sales choreography. And when we're thinking about this, and I know it sounds simple, but sales is kind of a dance. And so we have to make sure that our environment's straight. So the first piece is our environment straight? Is the room that we're in, is it closed off or is it wide open? Do we have a picture book that is full of testimonials? Do we have the situation? Do we have the wall of testimonials that are there that can show social proof to the prospect, right? That's the first piece, is ensuring that we have the social proof. The next piece is to ensure that we have a pre-sale questionnaire. And I know you've probably heard this in a bunch of different renditions, but I think the individuals who use pre-sale questionnaires are typically more successful, because it allows them to be able to get to the pain a lot quicker, because we understand that in buying, most people will gravitate more so towards the pain than actually to the pleasure, which is the kind of opposite belief than what we're accustomed to. And because of that, being able to have that pre-sale questionnaire that allows you to frame those questions and allows you to be able to ask the individuals the important information that show them that you're listening, paying attention, will actually get them closer to their pain points, which means it gets you closer to the point of sale with them. And then the last piece whatsoever is having a clear and concise sales process for the close. Most people skip this, and it's the craziest thing. The reason why this is super crazy is because there has to be kind of a workflow that happens after the sales process, is that you've promised this person that you're going to get them the results. We've got them in, they've agreed to the fact that they need the results, and then now we have to talk about, one, what's happening next, two, is we need to schedule when their next session is, and then three is that we need to ensure that if they have any questions, that they, one, understand how to contact us, or two, is that they understand where to go to get their answers so they can move forward in the process. This will decrease backouts, but then more importantly, it also will increase client communication as they're directly going with you, because we understand that they're scared when they first come in, but then this allows them to be able to decrease that fear and then move closer to where they want to be long-term, which is on path to meeting their goals, right? The next piece is that as an owner, there's a general belief that happens where you think that if you are doing the task, that the task is automatically done the proper way. Now, owners doing everything is not the way for success. It actually is the bottleneck for every business. When the owner has his hands in everything, it creates a stopgap, because then they seek, or the people below you will always seek information directly for you to create some sort of success for that business, which means that you'll end up with a lot more sleepless nights, because now you're going to be kept up at night because you're getting text messages from your team that are asking you a ton of questions like, how do I handle this? How do I tackle this? Mrs. Jones just texted me and she needs this, or Billy Bob just texted and he said that he can't come into the session. What do I do? Do I change the music? Like, can I create another playlist? Like, you get the point, right? Is that at the end of the day, like, you doing everything doesn't solve the problem. What solves the problem is creating clear and concise processes, again, or SOPs, right? Or standard orders of procedure, that will allow your team to understand, number one, what success looks like, number two, what the process is and how it gets itemized out, and then number three is how to determine a right or wrong decision. This allows them to autonomously move through the decision-making process, which means that it gives you the ability that you can truly focus on the things that you need to focus on, which is how to move the business forward, but now without having to have all the checks and balances in place that go along with this. What's beautiful about handing this off and then having this SOP and then having these processes in place is that it allows you the ability to understand what success looks like, so you can highlight your teammate, or it allows you to have a direct conversation with a teammate if that teammate isn't doing the things that they need to do to be successful. One of the biggest failures that we see in businesses or in leadership as a whole is that leader doesn't take the time to correct things that he sees wrong or she sees wrong. They just move on forward in the process and then hope that it self-corrects. Having these SOPs, having a dialed-out process will directly allow you the ability to not only take it and understand what that looks like, but then be able to clearly communicate what success looks like for your teammate. All right, guys. And then the last piece to this is just in general tracking. If you can't track your numbers, then you can't grow your business. One of the biggest mistakes that we see across the board is a lack of general tracking of KPIs and tracking of numbers for gyms that come in and they tell us, hey, I want to grow my business. But in all actuality, most people don't even understand what their general churn rate is. Understanding a couple of numbers in your business can completely change in regards to like the outcome and the growth of your business. Number one is we need to understand what our churn rate is. What our churn rate is the number of people that leave us at the end of the month divided by the number of people who we have in the beginning of the month. This number allows us to understand overall growth of our business and then the overall number of individuals that we need to have each month or that we need to sell, so then we can continue to grow, so it improves our growth rate. Not understanding your churn rate could be catastrophic, because you're seeing people come in the door, but you're also not seeing people leave, and you're understanding why your revenue is staying the same, but it's because you're not outpacing your churn. This happens to a lot of businesses where they just take it day by day and then they're slowly on this drip path, not to success, but just on this drip path to failure, because they typically let the eyeball test fool them. And we know what the eyeball test is. You look at your gym, you say, hey, I've had Bill here for 3 years. Bill has been awesome. He's come in, he hadn't gone anywhere. I've seen other members going, like, come and go, and you base your growth off of Bill. Bill isn't the measure of success. What the measure of success is are those other 9 people that slipped out of the door while you were paying attention to Bill, and then we never replaced them. I don't want to break even. And so if we're looking at this from a purely return on ad spend standpoint, is that this allows you to understand, number one, how much money that you can afford to spend. Number two is our front end offer the right offer for us to be successful? And then number three is it also gives us an understanding in regards to growth again. So when you're looking at ROAS, the one major point that I want you to focus on is from the moment at which that we make that dollar, how much money is it yielding back to us? And what I mean by that is that if I go to Las Vegas and I sit down at a slot machine, I want it to give me at least $2 for every dollar that I put in. And if I'm in a great slot machine, then I want that slot machine to give me $5 for every dollar that I put in. Now, this number can be improved in 2 different ways that I think are the easiest to manipulate. Number one is going to be your actual cost. So what is the cost that your actual front end program is? Most people don't charge enough, and then they don't understand why their ROAS isn't as high as what they want it to be, which means that they don't understand why that they aren't making money, because they're running ads, they're making sales, and they're doing the things that they need to do. The second piece to this is truly understanding like your closing percentage, and then ensuring that like we're closing the right amount of people. If we can manipulate those 2 numbers, then we can improve what our ROAS is. We can improve what that return on ad spend is, and we can improve what it looks like long term. The last number that I think that we need to look at is just in terms of understanding what it is the cost to acquire a customer. It's super important to understand the cost to acquire a customer, because this number allows us to understand, hey, if it costs me $300 to acquire a customer, but my front end program is only $200, then that means I'm losing money with every point of acquisition. And this is where most people sit, and this is probably one of the biggest problems that we see in the industry, is not understanding how pricing works. Now, if we're looking directly in regards to that, the easiest way to do this would be you look at how much you spend over the month and then you divide that by the number of sales. So let's go go back to our previous number and say that we spent $3,000 on the month, but then let's say out of $3,000 is that we only closed 2 people, which means that our cost to acquire the customer is $1,500, right? If we're selling a front end program for $499, that means that we're actually negative in the point of acquisition, which is not a good place to live. This is why we talked about, when we spoke a little earlier about return on ad spend, about why it's super important to manipulate those closing numbers. A lot of times, like when gym owners are looking at the numbers and they're attempting to make it make the most sense, they go to the lowest hanging fruit to try to make the decision to make it better, which is, hey, I'm gonna sell a lower ticket price in order to get in more people in order to make this better long term. But the real problem and the real villain in the story isn't that. The real villain is that we need to ensure that we have and we're making enough money on the front end to cover the cost to acquire a customer, and that we're closing at a higher enough percentage to substantiate that and improve what our return on ad spend is. If we can do those things, then it innately will allow us to not just have a prosperous business, but we'll have a happier and healthier business for the long term.